Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started in just a moment. We're going to give folks just a minute or two to trickle in.
Hello, everyone. I see we're about 3 after and we've got a good quorum, so I will get started with this webinar. Welcome to the Power at Sea Prize Informational Webinar. I'm Melissa Ginnasio, the Power at Sea Project Manager. Slide. The few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded and we'll post it on our HeroX YouTube channel. For questions and comments, please use the Q&A section. These will be monitored throughout the webinar and either answered via text or discussed at the end of the presentation. The chat section of this webinar will not be monitored, so please only use the Q&A section. And slide. Great, so today we'll be discussing the Power at Sea Prize. This is part of DOE's Water Power Technologies Office Powering the Blue Economy, PBE, initiative in collaboration with NOAA. Today, we'll give a brief introduction into the PBE initiative and then spend the remaining time discussing the Power at Sea Prize. We'll cover prize goals, the timeline of the 2 phases, the challenge areas and the blue economy applications that you should build your technology around, how and what to submit for a strong and compliant application on the HeroX website. We've also left time to answer participant questions at the end. So with that, I'll pass it to Carrie Schmaus, who's our Power at Sea Technology Manager.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everybody. So nice to be here with you today. As Melissa mentioned, I'm Carrie Schmaus. I'm a technology manager at WPTO, and I'll just be providing a brief overview to our office and the Powering the Blue Economy initiative. So we can go to the next slide. So for folks that aren't familiar, the Water Power Technologies Office is an office in the Department of Energy, and our marine energy program mission is pretty simple. It's harness energy from the world's oceans. For us, the resources that we work on are ocean waves, tides, and currents, including river current, as well as thermal, salinity, and pressure gradients. I will note offshore wind is not in that list. It's actually through a separate office. So when we talk about marine energy, that is the list of resources we are referring to. And then for your enjoyment, we've included some photos of some of our recent deployments, but we can go to the next slide for now. So this is just a brief overview for folks that may not know the size of the marine energy resource here in the United States. It's pretty significant. If we were able to harness all of the energy that the United States has in its oceans and rivers, it would be equivalent to about 57% of the energy generated in 2019. So even harnessing a small amount of that is quite significant for our renewable energy mix. And go to the next slide. So there's that 57% there. And on our next slide, we've got an overview of our Powering the Blue Economy portfolio. And so the Powering the Blue Economy portfolio is split up into two sections, the Power at Sea and Resilient Coastal Communities. As you've probably guessed by the name of this prize, we are most interested in applications out at sea under the solicitation. And so there's some examples there, but I do want to note that that is not an inclusive list. Those are just some areas that we are interested in, but this prize is quite open to anything that would be powering an application out at sea. Just some of those examples include ocean observation, underwater vehicle charging, offshore marine aquaculture, marine algae, seawater mining, and marine carbon dioxide removal, or MCDR. We're really interested in these applications out at sea, which again, we call the Powering the Blue Economy Initiative, because there's really a unique value proposition to meet the energy needs of the blue economy. And there's some content there. Again, these slides in this recording will be available, so I'll invite folks to read through those. But for now, you need to know that we are interested in applications of marine energy out at sea. And with that, we can move on to the next slide, and I will pass it over to Bree. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So we've launched the next Powering the Blue Economy Prize, which is called Power at Sea. You can go to the next slide. So the Power at Sea Prize has three main goals. The first one is to build and cultivate the marine energy community by bringing new minds into the space. Our second goal is to explore or identify new marine energy concepts. And our third goal is to introduce competitors like you in to different funding mechanisms, including the Water Power Technology Office funding mechanisms and also government funding. So after this prize, you can continue to do work in the marine energy space. You can go to the next slide. So the Power at Sea prize will have two phases. The first one is the concept phase with a total cash prize pool of $200,000, where up to 20 teams can each receive $10,000. And the development phase has a total cash prize of $1.5 million, where each of 20 teams can receive up to $75,000. You can go to the next slide. So we're currently in the concept phase. The concept phase submission opened 2 weeks ago. And so now we're accepting submissions until July 26, 2024. And then the concept phase winner announcement will be announced in August 2024. You can go to the next slide and I will hand it over to Ben.
Thanks, Bree. So the prize centers around applications and challenge areas, and you're really asked over the prize proposal to pick an application. They're listed there on the right, and to pick a challenge area, which I'll describe in a second. But this includes marine carbon dioxide removal, ocean obs, as per the previous prize, marine aquaculture, underwater vehicle charging, subsea communications, mining seawater, not seafloor, data centers, hydrogen electrolysis, marine restoration, pollution remediation, offshore fuels production, and potentially other areas if they're compelling within the blue economy. And to qualify for the prize, more than 50% of the energy produced for this blue economy application needs to be in the categories that Carrie highlighted in the earlier slide: wave, tidal, ocean current, river salinity gradients, thermal gradients, and it needs to be at the intersection of one of those applications. And then next slide, please. And a challenge area. So these are non-exhaustive questions for each of these challenge areas. We recognize that the challenge areas themselves overlap a little bit, but you're asked to pick one of these challenge areas specifically that your technology, your approach is going to best address at this intersection of the challenge area and the market application. So that's access, deployment duration, energy storage, environmental ecological impact, harsh operational conditions, hybridization with other renewable energy resources, and suitability of power. And that the idea here is that these are core challenges inherent to marine energy for powering offshore, power at sea applications. And the questions to the right are to help as examples, not exhaustively, but to help frame your thinking around whether or not this is the key challenge area for you. So I'll turn it over to Aaron at PNNL to continue.
Sorry, having a couple of video problems there. Next slide, please. So what are these things that you need to actually submit for this phase of the prize? Summary slide that states, it's just one slide that will be made public. It states who you are, which challenge area you're addressing, and basically what you plan to do, and a link to your video pitch. So you'll also need to submit a 3-minute video pitch. It will also be public facing. And it's meant to help reviewers and the public understand your technical concept, how it addresses the chosen challenge area. Reviewers will focus on the content, not quality of the video, so don't stress if you're not a professional filmmaker. And then the third and most important part of your submission is the technical narrative. This will not be made public, so if you have IP that you're worried about, you can rest assured that we will not be disclosing that. This should contain a clear, detailed description of your proposed novel technology and how it addresses the challenge area, as well as a description of your team's engagement throughout this phase and your plan development if your team is to continue into the next phase. Next slide, please. So the summary page will be scored just on an accept or a reject basis, and then the main part of the scoring will be the video and technical narrative. Each one of those will have scoring criteria that's listed in the rules document. The column on the right here shows the scoring statements that will be used by the reviewers to score your submissions on a scale from 0 to 5 as shown here. Whereas the column on the left contains suggested content that you could choose to include to address the scored statements. This content that we have suggested in the left column is just that, a suggestion. If you feel like you can effectively address each scored statement on the right without including all of the content on the left, please feel free to do that. Next slide, please. So this is how the scoring is broken up between the video pitch and the technical narrative. You'll see that most of the weight is placed on the technical narrative, and within that, the part that we are the most interested in is your technology description. And with that, I will turn it over to Amber.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, so for those of you who have not engaged with HeroX before, this is our main platform that we use to administer the prize. And so it's going to be a very valuable resource for you. This is the homepage of the Power at Sea prize. And as you can see up here at the top, you've got the option to share the prize with other people, which would be fantastic if you do that, as well as follow the prize if you haven't already. The big blue button down here, Solve This Challenge, will get you started with the prize and into the prize. It doesn't mean you're going to participate in the prize per se, but it helps get you involved so that you get notifications and can see what it will be like to actually enter the prize. Down at the bottom, you'll have several tabs that will be quite useful throughout the prize phase. Our upcoming webinars tab is where you will find webinars like this, where you can register, and we hope to get those posted soon and provide updates for the upcoming webinars as we can schedule them. The resources tab is where you will find the rules document, which is a very valuable resource for the prize, and where we will put things like our templates that we refer to in the rules document. The Teams tab is a great place to see what teams are participating and where you can connect with others. A forum is the best place you can go to ask questions, to get other input from competitors, as well as the administration team's responses to your questions. And so we encourage you to use the forum to ask your questions, and that's probably the easiest and quickest way to communicate with us. And then, of course, to stay up to date, you can tap on the timeline, and that will also list out prize phases, submission deadlines, and webinars as well. Next slide, please. So to register and compete, you will go to our Power at Sea HeroX page. As I mentioned, choosing Solve This Challenge, which again indicates your interests and not necessarily your commitment to compete in the competition. And then you will sign in or create a HeroX account, agree to the terms of use for the prize, confirm your email address, accept the challenge specific agreement. So you'll need to make sure that you accept our terms. And then you can indicate, would you like to compete as a team, just to indicate your interest. And then this is also where you'll submit your final submissions prior to July 26th, 2024, which is our phase deadline. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned, you can access the rules in our resources tab on the HeroX platform. All the topics that we cover today are covered in the rules, are in the rules document, and it will be your best friend. If you have any questions, the best place to look is the rules document first, before heading to the forum to ask your questions. We try to be pretty thorough with our rules, and it's a great resource. So make sure you read it and understand what we're looking for, submission deadlines, and all of the content that you'll need for those submissions. Again, it's a really great resource, and we encourage you to read it front to back. So, okay, great. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Amanda.
Thank you. So we're just going to start wrapping up here, but before we do, we wanted to make sure that you have all of our websites, our email address, and the option to sign up for our newsletters. So again, HeroX, that is the first URL, herox.com/power@sea, American Made Challenges. That's where you can find all of the DOE prizes that are administered by NREL. Our email is power@sea@nrel.gov, and you can also sign up for the Marine Energy Hydropower and a combined marine energy hydropower newsletter from the Water Power Technologies office. Next slide, please. So thank you, everyone. Please put your questions in the Q&A, and we will start answering those just as soon as they come in. I'm going to pass to Ben.
All right, well, I see our first question is, can we register for the Power at Sea and also in Deep prize at the same time? And the answer is a resounding yes. Please do just ensure that you're not submitting the same application to both prizes. We will notice that, but more information on eligibility for applications and how to deal with if you're involved in multiple DOE solicitations is in the rules document. But the short answer to can you register for two prizes at the same time is yes. Thank you for that.
Happy to stay on as long as there are questions that people have. Feel free to put them into the question and answer. We'll stay on for a few minutes longer in case anybody's typing a really long and involved question. Regards to isolated communities, do the communities need to be in the US? From Alan McCall. That is a good question. Typically, the benefit for federally funded programs needs to return to US taxpayers. I would say we'd probably get back to you on that specific question, but my personal intuition on that one is as long as it's readily comparable to a US community and the technology is readily comparable to a US community, it probably qualifies. But if that's the case, it might be better positioning your proposal to address that specific US community instead. I don't think we specifically preclude that in the rules, but there's going to be a general trend to try to return as much benefit to US taxpayers as possible. Anybody else on the team from the DOE lab side that wants to respond to that, please do. Mirko has a question. Can you clarify if some of the megawatt scale application areas you would consider, or sorry, can you clarify some of the megawatt scale application areas you would consider as shown in your slides? So we have MCDR, ocean obs, marine aquaculture, subsea communications, mining, seawater minerals and gases, data centers, hydrogen electrolysis, marine restoration, pollution remediation, and offshore fuels production, all listed as megawatt scale potentially. The sketch in that table was intended to provide people with suggestions or brackets or ranges. It wasn't necessarily be all end all list. If you'll notice, for example, on MCDR, we have monitoring, which isn't going to be a megawatt scale application for generation, or maybe it could be, but that wasn't what readily came to mind. For some of these, I think we were anticipating larger offshore applications and not wanting to restrict it to just pilot scale or small scale technologies on the market side, on the application side. Hopefully that's the clarification that you were looking for, Mirko. If there's more, please put something into the Q&A. Andrea says, can non-US based teams apply? What would be the requirements? We do have eligibility requirements listed specifically in the rules document. The rules document is available on HeroX. I've got it open right now, actually. So if you want to go to the prize site and click on any of the hyperlinks that download the rules, there is the eligibility section, which is, oh, somebody's probably going to find that faster than I am. If one of our,
I believe it's in Appendix A, Ben.
thank you.
The very last section, A17.
Thank you guys. A17. It was going to take me forever to get there. Usually we put eligibility up front, but A17, page 21 of the rules. I also want to mention that for those who are familiar with some of our earlier efforts, some of which I wrote for rules documents, this one is much easier to access. So please do read it. It's not particularly long as some of the earlier ones were, and hopefully less overwhelming. So try to write it much more clearly. But yeah, Andrea, if you could check out the eligibility requirements, I think you'll have an answer there. Nicholas says, are the connector resources available prior to concept submission? That's a great question. Amanda, did you know?
Yes, we will be posting those on the HeroX website as they become available.
Okay, great. And we have a plan for phasing that availability. I think there's a number of different ways that those things are going to be accessed and made available, and we'll announce that through broadcast channels when they are. Any other questions? Thanks, you guys. These are great questions. Can you elaborate on what you expect during phase 2? I could. It wouldn't be very interesting. Phase 2. Let me get you to that. Aaron and Bree, you guys were both, I think, talking a little bit about phase 2. Is there something that you'd like to hear about, Mirko? Aaron and Bree might be able to answer. Is this just design, or are you expecting prototyping? Okay. Rob, if you're on, do you mind answering that? The question is phase 2 just design, or do we expect prototyping?
I think at this stage we're excited to see what we see in phase 1 before deciding that. So it'll somewhat be dependent on the outcome of the first phase of the price.
Yeah, thanks.
I also think the intent, what we hope to come out of it, is to support prototyping and give access to, things like maker spaces and other commercial support.
And Mirko, if you're thinking the way I would be thinking and the way I anticipate you're thinking right now, we're very aware of the dollar amounts that are associated with each of these phases and the potential prize money per competitor. So that is very much going to be top of mind as we're looking at structuring the details of the develop phase. I'm acutely aware of how far, yeah, you're very welcome. I'm acutely aware of how far 75K goes in prototyping. Paul says, can one person put in 2 proposals, one on a different source of energy, say thermal, and another on wave? Can somebody from our prize team answer that?
So that's something that we have in our rules document. Competitors can provide multiple submissions. In the example you're giving, it sounds like they would be potentially distinct, but that is the requirement, is that they need to be materially distinct.
And that also goes for past funded projects with DOE. They need to be materially distinct from the proposals. Can an early submission be revised before the close date?
Yes.
Typically for, oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Yes. So if you go ahead and start something in HeroX and upload your materials, for example, we actually cannot see what you've uploaded until the prize closes. So you can go ahead, edit away. We will not be looking over your shoulder at any point.
Yeah. And if somehow you get locked out of something after you submit, please let us know. But typically the way these prizes are structured, we don't convene a review panel until after the prize is closed, or that phase of the prize is closed. Will having one in deep have any negative consequences for this prize? We consider prizes independently. So if you had the one technology to rule them all and submitted sufficiently materially different proposals to each of these prize competitions that satisfied the requirements of each of the prizes for eligibility and technical content and procedural, then yeah, that would be fine. You don't get scored down for having won other prizes. Very welcome. How important is the team at such an early stage? That's a hard one to answer as a vague question like that. How
It-
important is,
I'll
go ahead,
add
Amanda.
that if you go to the scoring criteria in the rules document, you can look and see how many are related to the team makeup. And you can see what percentage. That would be my recommendation for determining where you want to focus on your submission.
Thank you. Nicholas says, would a technology already funded under a team reward be eligible? Absolutely, yeah. So this prize is about the intersection of a challenge and an application or a blue economy market. If this is already a supported federally funded technology from elsewhere, so long as the intersection of your technology and the market and a identified challenge are unique in your proposal, that's fine. That's great. An anonymous attendee says, can a project make use of multi-domain marine energy types simultaneously, or must it conform to one type? For example, can a proposed technology use temperature gradients, pressure gradients, and salinity gradients simultaneously? Interesting example, by the way. But I don't see why not. So the criteria the criterion as written is that more than 50% or 50%, I believe, or more of the energy, 50% or more of the energy needs to come from marine energy resources. It doesn't have to be just one. It could be multiple. I think there are going to be challenges associated with incorporating hybridizing multiple energy sources, but that's not to say it wouldn't be a great idea. Anybody else on the technical side of the prize team want to add or detract?
No, I agree with that.
Okay, great. I did my PhD work in gradients. It's interesting stuff. We've got about 20 minutes left or so in the scheduled time here. Happy to answer more questions. I mean, there's some we can't answer, I suppose, but for the most part, there aren't any stupid questions. Can you elaborate on the power connector? So there is a section in the rules document specifically on the power connectors. This is something that we're using to support contestants so that they have a little bit more focused and also at the same time accurate domain understanding in this space. For the folks who are organizing the power connectors, if there's not, well, for the folks who are organizing the power connectors, is there anything specifically that you'd like to expand on that we didn't talk to in the webinar? And while that's open to Amanda and other folks, Nicholas, if you wouldn't mind maybe asking a specific question on the power connectors.
So I will say we typically launch these prizes and with a few power connectors started, and then we announce a few more as we go. We can't say who we're going to announce before those announcements are made. So again, just follow along on HeroX and you'll see those as they are posted. Yeah, I'm not sure what type of support you're looking for, but we're also open to suggestions if there's anything, since we have a few minutes here, that you'd like to see our power connector support you with during this first phase. Typically for phase 2, that is announced once we get there, because again, we'll ask our winners from our first phase here what would help them in phase 2. So I'd love to hear from folks.
Yeah, and just underscoring that idea. Like the idea here is to shepherd really strong ideas forward with as much chance of success as possible, equally across all of the competitors. We have good national lab testing and verification with good data, but in need of funds for important fine tuning. Will this platform could assist us in scheduling more very expensive testing? Should we wait to file for the next phase or start with you now? So this prize really isn't about testing or verification or performance evaluation. The national labs don't really do validation anyway. We do performance evaluation, and there are really great resources. I would direct you to WPTO and their webpage if you're interested in testing needs. There's a number of programs like Teamer that are maintained and opened on a pretty regular basis to support testing and performance evaluation. The point of this prize is much more looking at concept, especially this first phase. The concept phase is much more about looking at ideas, generating new and interesting ideas in this space at the intersection between a challenge that marine energy faces broadly at power at sea and an application area or blue economy market. So it sounds as though you might be more interested in Teamer or similar programs, and I'd encourage you to check out the WPTO page. We're working on trying to get you a link to Teamer here. For those not familiar, Teamer is testing expertise for marine energy. And it's administrated by the Pacific Ocean Energy Trust and funded by the U.S. Department of Energy's Water Power Technologies Office. You can go to https:// teamer, TEAMER -us.org for more information. Yeah, Teamer is a great program. If you're looking for testing and validation, or testing and evaluation rather, definitely worth a look. All right, one last plea for questions here. Folks have anything else? Otherwise, we'll look to wrap it up in the next minute or two. ACS, can you expand on some of the challenge areas expected to be answered? A little bit, sure, yeah, that was one of my slides even. We gave a number of different challenge areas. The team got together here and looked over some of the historical areas that marine energy has struggled and where solutions would be really potentially transformative. So we came up with access, deployment duration, energy storage, environmental ecological impact, harsh operational conditions, hybridization with other renewable energy resources, and suitability of power, thinking that these were major challenges for marine energy generation interfacing with some of these applications, these blue economy markets. And this is from interaction with the blue economy market representatives and those technologies. It's from a long history of interacting with these generation technologies across the spectrum of marine energy. And it's trying to focus some solutions in your proposal so that reviewers can understand what challenge you're addressing for what markets and how it's relevant. Because we think that there is, at those intersections, there's going to be different combinations of solutions that make a difference. So the questions that are provided in the rules document and on the slides in this webinar are intended to get you thinking about that space. We came up with a much longer list of questions, but those were kind of a few that that resonated for each of these. And we're very well aware, as I said during the talk, that there's overlap between these challenge areas, and that's a little bit by design. You might, for example, have something that addresses access and deployment duration, but it addresses a deployment duration more. So you'd mention that maybe, but you'd pick deployment duration as your challenge area that you're addressing with your proposal. There's quite a bit of work in the portfolio from DOE and in the industry at large on each of these questions, on the utility scale, but also now in the last few years on powering the blue economy. So lots of neat work to pull on from that if you're looking for references or background. And then we're looking for innovative thought for new ideas in that space. It's at that intersection of those challenge areas and an application. And it's a really, if you matrix those things together, it's a really rich opportunity area to come up with new ways of thinking about things. Oh, I'm being asked very wisely to remind everybody who's still on that these the recording for the webinar and the slides are going to be posted on HeroX, so you will have access to them later. Thanks, Amanda. All right. Well, thanks everybody for the great questions, the great discussion. Thank you for your interest in the Power at Sea prize. We're really excited about this prize. The blue economy is something that's a really interesting area, obviously, for marine energy. And we're really looking forward to your applications and seeing what great ideas you come up with for this space. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Definitely look at the rules document first if you have rules questions. But good luck to everybody. Looking forward to seeing your proposals. Take care and thank you.